Welcome to the Highcast, the podcast where we chit chat, spill the tea, and some facts. I'm your host, Thais, and I'm highly happy to have you here. Well, welcome to the first episode of the Highcast podcast. So, I want to start by saying that this is the very first time I am recording a podcast episode. So, I apologize if it's not perfect. I'm going to start this podcast with a sentence that I wrote down. I wrote down, I spent a long time trying to feel confident until I realized I was looking for it in the wrong place. Yes, let's think about that for a second. So, before we go any deeper, I think I'm just gonna introduce myself and maybe introduce the podcast to you guys. So, I am a 27-year-old that was born and raised in Brazil. I moved around a lot. I've done a lot of random shit in my life. I hopped from place to place. I lived in the States, in Canada, in France, always trying to, I don't know, maybe like find myself or find the right place for me. And I guess I haven't done it yet. But I have found myself in this fantastic journey that is called spiritual awakening. And that is kind of the topic I want to talk about today, but not just that. Um, Also about like just how confidence plays a role in everything. And as for the podcast, I want this to be like a safe space you can come to if you have questions, if you're like doubting the process, or if you're on your manifestation journey and you just want to like like you keep watching the videos and people tell you all those things, but they never actually like show you what they mean. So you're just confused and you keep like watching and watching and like you never get anywhere. I want to share the journey with you because like I said, I am going through this like process of spiritual awakening and I've been on it for 2 years, not even joking. And I feel like I've gathered a lot of insights and knowledge that I would love to share. So, like I said, if you are confused, if you are on like your growth journey in your spiritual awakening era, you are more than welcome to stay. I really want to build a community where we can all like help each other. But also, I think it's like I'm responding to a call, maybe from the above. I think I'm going to go into more detail as we get into the, episode. But without further ado, let's get started. So I'm gonna reread the sentence from the beginning of the episode because I just want you guys to really like understand that. I spent a long time trying to feel confident until I realized I was looking for it in the wrong place. So, ever since I started this spiritual awakening journey, I don't know, I learned a lot. I went down a whole bunch of different paths trying to find answers, find support. And one thing that I really started leaning on into was signs, you know. Like, for example, if you're on the manifestation community, a lot of people talk about like angel numbers. For example, you're seeing that 1111 on the clock or the 222, like you look for signs, you want signs, and you want that reassurance that you're on the right path. And for me, like it started very like it was slow. It grew over time. So I guess I'm gonna give you a little feedback on how I started my journey. Like I said, I moved around a lot, but at some point in my life, I just found myself completely like, I don't know, there was just like this tower moment. Everything fell apart. I was in a relationship and I broke up. I was living in my like dream place and I had to move, and I had a job and then I didn't, and I started having some debt. Everything went to shit. I'm not even joking. It was like crazy. But it was the moment that I was like, I do not want to keep acting the way I have been acting lately. I didn't recognize myself. I wasn't happy with myself, with my actions, with the way I was responding to the world. So I was like, you know what? Even though I'm like suffering right now, I'm going to choose the high path. And let me tell you, I did not expect for things to turn out the way they did. And the first thing I started doing was watching tarot videos. Those girlies that do like collective readings. I started watching that like every single day. And it's funny because they always say at the beginning, like, like take what resonates, leave what doesn't. But it's like if you are looking for tarot videos on the internet, if you find anyone that is telling like slightly what you want to hear, dude, even if it doesn't resonate, you're not gonna leave it. If somebody's literally telling you what you've been craving to hear, you're not gonna leave it. You're gonna like hold that. And for me, it started with that. And then from that, I started leaning into like spirituality. As I mentioned, I am from Brazil, and in Brazil, there's this religion. It's from they have like African roots, and it's called Umbanda. And the people that like practice this religion, they basically are like mediums, so they like incorporate entities. And if you go to like one of those like gatherings, you literally can talk to the entity. So of course I did that. Like, and it found me, like I started working at this place, and then this girl started working there too, and we became friends, and she just invited me to go with her, and I went. And I talked to the entity for the first time. And the morning after, I bought a tarot deck for myself. Yes, I did. And then when I did that, it was amazing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love tarot, but I think you need to know how to use it. And I have used a lot for guidance and for confirmation, but I think for a really long time I used it as reassurance. But tarot was just part of it. And then, like I said, I was going to the gatherings a lot to talk to the entities, hoping for an insight that was going to change my life, or just, I don't know, just like hoping for something. And then I also like to do a lot of internal searching, I guess. And I also started experimenting with psilocybin mushrooms, the magic mushrooms. I have done them before that like era in my life. But like when I started doing it again, it was definitely more like serious to me, like I was really taking that as like, okay, this is a tool for me to go inside. Because I think that like when I started the spiritual awakening, it wasn't on purpose. I really like I think I felt stuck in my life and a little bit desperate. So it was like, when you start hearing people saying, like, oh, believe in the law of attraction and manifestation, which I definitely do, don't get me wrong. But I think that the way people explain it, especially when you're first starting, it's a little misleading. And so, girly, if you're listening to this right now and you are watching tarot videos and watching people talking about manifestation, whatever, just try to understand it a little bit like deeper. Not that people are lying, but I think that they just don't explain the way it actually is, because people are like, oh, manifest, like change your life overnight, or oh, you decide and it's done, but like if it's done, then like why isn't my reality changing, whatever. So I think that's where it started, like I wanted to manifest different 3D reality circumstances in my life because I wasn't fulfilled, and I was looking for this external validation. I wanted to have A, B, and C because I wanted those things to make me feel like loved and secure and whatever else. So I think like that's kind of how it started. And it really started like drifting. And like I said, I kind of went down this like rabbit hole. But anyways, then the mushrooms came again. And I was doing the heroic dose, the 5 grams, once a month to try to like get this insight that would like make me heal whatever I had to heal. I really wanted to, like, it got to a point where like I understood that if I wanted to have like different circumstances in my life, I was gonna have to really heal to get to a better place, I guess. And I really wanted to, like, how I wanted to do the work as fast as I possibly could, because I was like, the fastest I do the work, the fastest the 3D is gonna change. Because it got to a point where I was like, okay, like I've been doing this, like I know I'm doing it. I'm putting a lot of work into this. So like it has to come. And like I said, it's been almost 2 years. And that happened, like all of this started happening right after I moved back to Brazil from the United States. And in between all of that, I was going through my spiritual awakening. I was just like healing and trying and tarot and mushrooms and whatever. And somehow I found myself in France. I went to France because I wanted to live abroad again. For a very long time, I wanted to speak French. So, living abroad would be, amazing. Yeah. I thought that in like 3 months, I'd be like, oh, bonjour. Ça va, mon chéri? I thought that everything was gonna, like, I was gonna learn so fast. I thought it was gonna be amazing, magical, and it wasn't. It was awful. And it was also a time where I was like, dude, I am not accepting less. I'm doing the work. Like, why is my 3D like showing me shit over and over again? But I was like, I can't keep doing this. Like, I cannot keep doing this. So I was like, you know what? Even though I am abroad, I cannot stay here if I am miserable. So I came back to Brazil. And then once I did that, I think that like I had to go through a lot of things in France to really like trust myself a little bit more, because the thing is, I've been working on the healing for a very long time, but I constantly wanted external validation, and like I said, I started to lean on the signs too much. Every single time I would see like a repeating number, I would look it up, and I would tell ChatGPT, like, oh my gosh, like seeing the number, what do you think it means? Like, do you think it's a sign? Or like I said, going to the gatherings and doing mushrooms and the cards, and I was looking because I wanted to make sure I was on the right path, and I wanted to do this episode about this because this is like my most, like the most recent insight that I had, that I feel like if I had before, like, not that it would have like changed the journey too much, but I think it would have made a lot of things a little bit easier. So, when you are in this journey, I think you do want validation. Like you want to know you're on the right path because like you're trying so hard to stay on the right path. You just want someone to like tell you like you're good, you're on it. But at the end of the day, it's like, with manifestation, you learn that you get like your outside is a mirror of your inside, right? So if you have to keep looking for something externally, it means that you still don't have the confidence inside of you. And that's where this sentence comes in, because the thing is, if you keep looking outside, over and over again, like it's never ending. Like it's a loop because when you're waiting, you're not acting. And manifestation is not that things like magically comes to you. Like you align to take the right actions to get to your like desired reality. I would love to talk about manifestation, with you guys in a future episode. I love it, but anyways, and I think that like that is kind of where we need to understand that like we can see 11:11 every single day, but that doesn't mean anything. It literally doesn't mean anything, because okay, let me just I'll tell you the story of how I got, this insight, because it's very simple, but also like it took me so long. Ever since I came back from France, I really wanted to go back to the gathering that I mentioned, to talk to the entities. And I also wanted to do a magic mushroom trip. And for months, I couldn't. I was doing the work and, like I really tried to use the insights I get from my cards. So, like this year, apparently I'm supposed to, like, part of my path is about sharing my experience. That's, one of the reasons why I'm doing this right now. It's about that. But I started by writing. I actually really love writing, and I wrote a book. I wrote a book in literally 10 days. It's actually on Amazon. It's called The Way Back to Myself. And it's crazy, like because I literally wrote a book in 10 days. There's like 14 chapters, and I did all the I did the edits in the cover and everything, and like it's obviously not a perfect work, but it's incredible because I did it myself, and it's something that I'm very proud of, like even if nobody ever reads it, and I think it's the same with this podcast. Like, because I know it's part of my path, it's not about necessarily like what I get from it, like, but I think it's about doing it. And like I said, I've been doing that, but I felt blocked, because I couldn't find a place to buy the mushrooms. Every single time I try to go to it's called the gira, the gathering to talk to the entity. And I was trying to go and I could never, like every single time I tried to go, it never worked out till a few weeks ago, on the same day that I was finally able to buy 5 grams of magic mushrooms. I was invited by the same friend that introduced me, to go with her to Ajita. So I was like, oh my goodness, like now is the time. That's the movement I've been craving, because there's, you know, during the path, there's a part, of the path that feels like you're stagnant. It feels like you're not moving at all. It's boring as shit. And you're like, what the fuck should I even be doing right now? Like, because I feel like I'm doing it all, but I'm not doing much at the same time. And when I was allowed, I felt like I was being allowed something. I was like, now is the time. Now is the movement, finally, right? Then I eat the mushrooms, and, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe you have done a trip, but if you haven't, you don't really remember much from the trip, like especially if you do like higher dosages, like 5 grams is like a lot. It's call it the heroic dose. So you don't remember much because it's a lot for your brain, but I remember perfectly like this time, the one thing like the one thought that kept repeating was there's nothing new. Like there's literally nothing new. Because like before, I mean, if you eat the 5 grams, like you're obviously gonna like have an experience regardless, but there wasn't like an insight. Like before I had these like really crazy experiences, and this time like I just kept thinking like I know this, nothing new. So like not that I wasn't like disappointed, but I was like, what the heck? I was, expecting something else. And then the week after, I go to the Gira and I talk to a gypsy entity, and they're my favorites because like they love cards, and gypsies, they are known for, like going out and looking for their place. So I feel like I have like a gypsy side, I should say. And it was crazy, okay? Like if that was my first experience, I would be like, dude, like this is bullshit. Like not even joking. I went there and like I felt the energy. It was nice. And I went to talk to the woman that was, the gypsy that I was going to talk to. And it was just weird. Like, like I was very open and I usually go there to listen. I never really ask anything like specifically, but this time, like, she really wanted me to say something, and I was like, I mean, I'm what I like, whatever. I just kind of like shared a little bit, but like it was so weird because I kept like talking. I was the one talking, talking, talking. And then at some point, she literally looked at me and said, well, I can't say too much. And everything I was about to tell you, you just told me. So she was basically like, you're gonna get the fuck out of here. And she didn't say anything new. And once again, I was like, what? Because like that was supposed to be it. I was supposed to be hearing something insight, or maybe like the entity being like, dude, I saw the other side for you. Like, you're good. Keep going. Like, nothing, literally nothing. And I was like, this cannot be happening, right? I was so confused, but I decided to take it in. Okay. I was like, okay, let me take a few days to integrate, what happened, and then maybe I'll get some insight. And I actually did, you know, because for the very first time, I understood that I am the one who has the power to decide, and I'm going to read the sentence one more time because I want this to really make sense to you, okay? I spent a long time trying to feel confident until I realized I was looking for it in the wrong place, which means, the confidence I wanted to feel, that strong, real confidence that I knew it was within me, I was outsourcing that. I was eating mushrooms to because I thought like magical had to happen to my brain for me to have access to the insight. I thought like a dead soul had to talk to me to give me the answers, and or that I had to read tarot cards to show me whatever. And at the end of the day, no. Like, because here's the thing, when you decide something, you need to stick with it, because everything in your life is a process. Time is gonna go by anyways. So if you want something, like even if like it can be the most outrageous thing you could ever think about, like anything, like what I'm trying to get, absolutely crazy. Like I want like a 360 in my life, everything. I want to change everything, but it's like I know it's gonna happen because I decided it's gonna happen. I don't know how it's gonna happen, but I know it will. And my only job is to not be available for what I don't want, you know? And the thing is, if I want to be sure, like I am the only one that can give that to myself, because at the end of the day, nothing happens like magically. I mean, I do think they happen magically, but I don't think they happen out of thin air. I think everything is a process. Life is made of bridges. You use one bridge to get here, the other to get here, and then you just keep walking. It's literally a path. It takes time, it's a process. But the thing is, if like what you want, like it's not important enough for you to stick with it for as long as necessary, then is not that important to you, you know? And like I said, like I really want to talk further, about manifestation and about the path on other episodes, because I think there's like so much we can go like in depth, but this first episode, I really wanted to give the message that, like, stop waiting for anything externally to give you the green lights. Do not wait for permission from the outside. You don't need permission, If you are poor as shit right now, but you want to have a mansion, you want to live by the beach, you want to drive, I don't know, a fucking Ferrari, you can do that. Choose that, decide that. Know the brand of your car, the color of your car, know the feeling of holding the keys, Picture yourself waking up in the morning, opening the window, like find a way to insert yourself in your like desired reality and stay there long enough for that to become like your 3D reality, you know? And most of all, just make sure to like trust yourself, because you are the one that's going to take you everywhere, like it's like in my case, it's not gonna be the fucking tarot cards that's gonna like put me on their back and take me anywhere, It's me. I'm the one, like I am the vehicle, I am the GPS, I am the vehicle, I am the driver. It's all up to me, and I'm not saying that like, oh my gosh, I feel so much pressure. Like, no, because I know I am supported. I know I have like the spirits are with me, the universe, God, whatever. I know I am supported. However, I need to take action, and like I said, that's why I'm starting this podcast, because if sharing my experience with you is part of this, it's part of this journey, I'm open to that, So, well, I guess I'm gonna leave you guys with this, confidence equals self trust, okay? And external validation equals an endless loop. It doesn't take you anywhere, okay? And if you're searching everywhere, make sure to come back to yourself. Thank you so much if you're still here. And well, if you are interested in manifestation, in the laws of the universe, or if you are in your spiritual awakening journey, if you are in your growth journey, please make sure to stick around. I'd love to have you here. If you have any questions, any doubts, specifically anything you want me to share or talk about with you guys, I am living this like in real time, real life, and I do not have everything figured out just yet. But I am willing to bring you guys along in the journey, and maybe we can all figure out together. I wish you guys a wonderful day. If you are watching on YouTube, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I feel like this is such like a personal setting. And like I said, I know it's not perfect, but I'm gonna try to improve as I go. But if you sticked around to the end, thank you so much for your presence. I am so glad. And I would love if you could stay with me and follow the journey together. Alrighty, guys. Thank you. Bye.